These are 5 tips to help you win in your save on Football Manager. And the first tip is to send players on holiday when they need a rest. So when players are in need of a rest, usually from playing too many matches, they'll have this RST icon, and they'll have a little thing that says they need a rest. And the most common thing for most Football Manager players to do at this point is to either rest them for the next match or to rest them from training. And to rest them from training, you would just go to training, click rest, and you can rest them for however many days you want. However, this isn't necessarily the most effective way to rest your players, and I'm going to explain why. So in game, the thing that actually determines whether or not players need a rest is something called match fatigue or jadedness. This isn't something that you can actually see within the game, but that is something that you notice when that RST icon comes up and something coaches might talk about. But if we actually go into the in-game editor and look at a player's attribute details, under fitness, we see this thing called fatigue. The fatigue, anytime it's above 400, this is when you would see that RST icon. So this is something you'd only be able to see with the in-game editor. So we can actually design a little experiment here where we can look to see how much fatigue reduces when normal training, when we rest players from training, and when we actually send players on holiday. And what we've seen is that fatigue is significantly more reduced upon sending players on holiday. And if you're interested in seeing what that experiment looked like, that is a video we had done previously, and I will link that at the top right now so that you can look at that experiment. And the way to send players on holiday is to go into training and to go into rest. And if we look at the physio recommendation, we'll see anyone that might need a 1-week holiday. So we can see that here with Roy Kent. And all you would do at this point is go to their training intensity. And at this point, you'll have the option to send them on holiday for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. Now, that being said, this is something I would only recommend if you have an extended break, maybe a 2-week break, or if you have matches coming up that you don't plan to play those players in. And when you send them on holiday, you can actually see, so let's say we're going to send them on holiday for 1 week, you can actually see which matches they're going to miss at this point. So for our team, we have Arsenal and Brentford coming up. I don't know if I would want to rest Roy Kent for the Arsenal game. So what I think I would do here is rest him from training until the Arsenal game, but I feel like I don't need him for the Brentford match. So I would send him on vacation for the Brentford match. We would see that fatigue significantly reduce, and he would be back and ready for the rest of the season. So that is tip number 1, to send your players on holiday when they need a rest. Tip number 2 has to do with our transfer budget. And this is different ways so that you are able to increase your transfer budget in Football Manager. And this can be especially important for lower league saves where you essentially don't have any money for the transfer budget, or if you even want to increase your wage budget. But as we can see here, we don't have any transfer budget. There is 0 transfer budget. And what players would normally do at this point is go into finances and make a budget adjustment. And that's great and all, but let's say we're all the way over at this point and we still don't have any transfer budget, or we're already spending enough on wage budget that we don't really want to increase that transfer budget. There is still something you can do at this point. And that something you can do is actually go into your scouting budget. So what you can do is go into your scouting budget, and just like you did, you can move the cursor over and increase your transfer budget as so. So at this case, for a Premier League club, we were able to increase our budget pretty significantly. You wouldn't be able to do the same necessary for a lower league club, but as long as you have some scouting budget, you can move that into your transfer budget, and then you can either keep it into your transfer budget, or you can move that over to your wage budget if you need to sign more players or improve contract situations at your club. So that is tip number 2. If you are willing to sacrifice some scouting budget towards your transfer or wage budget, you can actually move that scouting budget over to increase your transfer budget or even increase your wage budget. Now we are going to move into tip number 3, and I think tip number 3 is a really important one. Now, this is something you can only maybe do once or twice a season, so I would only do it for particularly important matches. Now, in our AFC Richmond save, I have a really important, potentially season-defining match against Arsenal coming up. So I want to make sure that our team is in tip-top shape heading into that match. And something that's going to be really important, of course, for the most important matches is making sure that the club atmosphere is as best as it can be, that all players are as happy as they can possibly to put in a good performance. And we're a little bit down right now, so this is something you can do to all of your players only once or twice a season. So I would only do it prior to the most important games to make sure they're all as happy as they can be. And that is to go in and praise their conduct. Now, most people are very good at praising form or praising their training, but I rarely ever see people going in and praising a player's conduct. So I would recommend going in, praising their conduct. And as you can see, it gives them that little bit of boost for their morale. And if you do this for all of your players, this is going to help increase the dressing room atmosphere. And again, you can do this right before a big match to make sure that all of your players are happy and that they're going to have the best match they possibly could, potentially before a big match in the season, a title defining match, or even a Champions League final. Next up, we have a tip with training. So this is our fourth tip. And now most people might follow, and absolutely nothing wrong with this if you follow what the AI has set or if you're following a preset training program. But if you want to set your own training program, there's something that you can look at to see what is helping your players. And if you go into the calendar and you are looking to set training, something that you can see here is that you can actually see what each type of training impacts. And this can help you decide exactly what type of training you want to set up. So for example, if we go to general and we go to overall, we can see that it helps everything. It helps with tactical familiarity. It helps with all of these attributes. It helps to increase happiness, team cohesion, etc. And we can do this for everything. If we go into match preparation and tactics, we can see how it helps. So I think this is something that's commonly overlooked is that you can actually see exactly what is being impacted by the training. You can see the good things that it helps. You can see the things that it doesn't help. And this can help you define your own training. And as a little bonus tip here, I think one of the best types of match preparation is actually teamwork in the beginning of any save. At the beginning of any save, your team isn't going to have really good team cohesion. And teamwork is the thing that helps the most with team cohesion. So you can have this in a few times a week. It'll help to increase your team cohesion. That is going to help your team to play better. Make sure you add teamwork into your schedule, especially at the beginning of any save or any season to help with your team cohesion. And my final tip is to complete transfers outside of the transfer window. I will see so many football manager players waiting until transfer windows to make their signings, but you can complete all of your transfer activity outside of the transfer windows. And what will happen is that on the day that the transfer window is open, those players that you signed outside the transfer window will officially join your club at that point. So you can complete the transfer outside of the transfer window, but they won't actually join your club until the transfer window opens. However, by completing your transfer activity outside of the transfer windows, this means that you're not going to have competition from other clubs. So you can look at signing a player outside of a transfer window, and you don't have to worry in general about other clubs coming in for that player, making a bid for that player because it's outside the transfer window. And just to kind of illustrate this point, we are outside the transfer window right now, but you can always still make a bid for a player. You can negotiate an offer. We can accept the demands. And if we move on from there by going into the next simulation, and we can see here that the transfer was accepted, you can start contract negotiations. And at this point, the player will join at the opening of the next transfer window, as we can see here. So my last tip, absolutely sign players, complete your transfer activity outside of transfer windows. You're not going to experience the same kind of competition from other clubs as you would if you tried to sign them during the transfer window, and it will be much easier for you to complete your transfer activity. So that's it. Those are 5 Football Manager tips to help you win at Football Manager. I hope that you found these tips helpful. If you have any other tips, let me know below so that you can help out some other Football Manager players as well. But with that, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye!